In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Be seated. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I remember working in a place that was pretty well known for not being just to people. And this time in my life, I was selling vehicles and cars. And I remembered how if you don't sell, you don't sell. You don't get money at home, right? And even though we were, I'm not going to mention the brand, right? But we were a very high demand vehicle dealership in the Roswell area. And at this point, they were selling very expensive cars, even outside of the state. They still pay just the minimum wage to the front desk, secretaries, and everyone else that was cleaning that place, those that cleans the vehicles. It was a minimum wage type of thing. And I remember when I started actually selling, at one point, selling 25 cars of those a month meant a good amount of money. And I said, if I am making this good amount of money, I cannot imagine what this guy is making, the owner. The owner of that dealership happens to get really ill and retired because he couldn't do it anymore. And the son came in, and this is something similar to this story. The son came in and said, how many years have you been working here? And there were people that 5, 6, I don't know how many more. And he said, I'm going to give you a bonus. And when people start receiving the checks that he was given, they were pretty substantial. Because he says, you have been making this company what it is. Everybody that comes through that door and see this place very clean, it's you, it's not me. So he changed the attitude of the company to the moment of which the only reason I left was because I didn't want to do that anymore, and I went back to teaching. The reason I'm telling just as part of the story, because we got something similar today. Because if you notice, the gospel today is talking about envy. Envy. It's talking about when we as human beings, immediately when we see that somebody else gets the same thing that I can get, I'm going to get more. And the actual Greek at the bottom, when it says, envious because I am generous. The actual Greek says, I cannot do things with my belongings, what belongs to me, because of your evil eye. Is what the Greek actually says. Because even we use it very casually, right? When you say, oh, I just came back from Cancun, from a week over there, and you go, oh, I'm envious. Oh, and we usually use it very casually. But the Greek defining this, that we have downplayed as envy, to evil eye. Evil eye goes more than just envy. That means that you think that you are more than the person that came before you. Because if you notice, I always say, this is the teacher in me. Grammar is important. If you notice, there was one thing here in the reading that caught my attention when I started reading it, is because he says he talked to one of those that he employed in the morning. One. Probably the others were perfectly fine. Oh, I got my $100, I'm good. One of them was the one that actually came back and said, but wait a minute. Why the one that worked an hour got the 100? I just said the 100 numbers just to play with you, right? You got the $100 working 1 hour, and I have been here the entire day. with the possibility of getting sick, heat stroke, and you give me the same $100? And what is the next part that we all always say? What's the next word that we always say? It's not fair. You see? Immediately she goes, it's not fair. That's the word that comes to mind. It's not fair. And that's when we call the 10-year-old. It's not fair. That he just worked 1 hour and you give him that. And then we have been all day here and we work that. I met a couple of cradle Episcopalians back in the day when I started my process, and I started asking, what it meant to be an Episcopalian all your life. And this lady came to me and says, oh, my room is going to be bigger in heaven. That's what that means. And I go, what? Last time I checked, on the cross, there was a guy next to it that said, hey, Jesus, remember me when you get into your kingdom? And the answer was, no, I'm sorry, man. The only thing available is a closet. Would you take it? Probably he would have said, oh, of course, yeah. That's actually my hope, that I can just, grab to a closet door like that, right? No. He said, today you are going to be with me in paradise. No questions asked. You changed your heart? You did? Yes. Welcome home. And sometimes in our spiritual life, because we have been sitting in the same chair all our lives, we think that we got it all. And the last person that comes through the door goes like, they're just arriving here. No. We work like that in churches. We love spiritually to look at God and go, it's not fair. We love to do that. We love to do that. And the scripture today, if you just do the balcony view, right? That you get into the balcony and start viewing what's happening in the scripture today. If you go there, you go to the balcony and start looking at it, you will see that you have a generous landowner that saw people in need in the street and decided, I have the work for you. All you have to do is come. I will give you what you need. Come. It is not about you come when you are 5 or 10 or 15 or 79 years old. Come. The Christian never said that those in the morning were probably, I don't know, more younger and couldn't work. And then those that came later that can only work only an hour. It never said that. But it did mention, why you're doing that. That is not fair. And when we come into a life with God and a life with a spiritual life, and we come with the same attitude that when we were 10 about, who get the Barbie or who get the G.I. Joe or who get the Tonka or who get, and I'm just here with my tiny little robot that only go like that. It's not fair. That's how it sounds. That's how the scripture is presented to us. We cannot come into the scripture, we cannot come into a spiritual life with a childish spiritual attitude, because guess what? We're going to hit ourselves to the wall. Because we are in front of a generous God. A God that knows more than you and me. A God that put the right person in the right moment, at the right place. I don't know about you, but I see miracles every day. Every day. When I feel that I am already like, I don't know what's going to happen, boom, the miracle is there. And sometimes the miracle has nothing to do with what you want, but everything with what you need. And that's the beauty that this scripture is trying to tell us today. Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Didn't we agree on this? Didn't God agree with us in our baptismal covenant that we were His and He is ours? That's the promise. That we were supposed to be one, a good relationship. Isn't we promised that? Aren't we, every time that we renew our baptismal vows, go in the same way, saying we promise to actually have a nice relationship with you and with everybody that we encounter? That's the promise of the baptismal covenant. And today is pretty much just telling us, well, if you come to this attitude, we are not following our baptismal covenant, it's in the scripture, people. That's pretty much what's happening here. It's asking us to do that, as I mentioned, constantly, do that self-check in your own faith path. And again, nobody's here is to judge, because every single one of us are in a different path. And some of us, do 3 steps forward and 1 step backwards, but you still gain 2. Remember that. Never get discouraged with that step back when you have done so many forward already. And remember, if that's the pattern that we do, 3 forward, 1 back, 3 forward, 1 back, what's going to happen? We're still moving forward. Oh, God knows that I give my step back, Oh, yes. But the scripture is clear. Let's always take that evil eye and put it over there. Let it go out of your life, out for good. And then start looking at the real thing. And the real thing is we have a generous God that is with us, that is loving, that is caring. But remember, love is not peaches and cream all the time. There are some painful moments in the way. And we always have to remember that. And I love a phrase that comes from our second reading today from St. Paul. Paul being the excellent writer and mind that Paul is. He said, I am hard pressed between the two. That he mentioned, right? To being fruitful labor and being always with God. My desire is to depart and be with Christ. That's the desire of the heart. Because when you find that spiritual connection like Paul did, that you have that spiritual connection with God, you will not want to lose it. And while we are in this body, we could. That's why Paul says, my desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary, not for me, for you. That's the life of the Christian. While we are here on this earth, we are testimony to others. That's the reason we're still here, because we have a purpose to do, to continue being testimony. I'm going to give you a very simplified version of something that I even preached this Thursday in the school. There was this 76-year-old lady that wanted to help the youth group. And she had no idea how, but she heard in the preaching that you should do something for your church, and that was put in her heart, I want to help the church group, the youth group. So the youth came, and the youth leader said, what do you want to do? She said, I have no idea. God and I will figure it out. No worries. So she had a hard time memorizing the names of the kids, right? So she started taking pictures and put behind it a little biography of them, right? You know, the father is this, the mom is this, they do that, they go to school. So after she did that with all of them, every time they come in through the door for the youth group, she stand at the door saying hi by name and asking him something important about their lives, such as, how's school today? And to the high schoolers, oh, I learned that you started working in the grocery store, right? How's that going for you? That she did it for 10 years. 10 years. And during those 10 years, there were a lot of people that came to the youth group just because to meet her at the door. She made sure that she greeted them at the beginning, and at the end, if she did not catch a few because they came through another door, she was able just to yell at least to the parking lot, hey, see you next week. At 86 years old, she started having heart problems. She couldn't go there anymore. And the youth group decided to have a funeral for her. And they said, and she said, yeah, but I'm not dead yet. Don't do no funeral right now. I said, no. We want you to hear everything that will be said in your funeral when you are here. She agreed. She sat in the front pew during 10 years of youth group. Though there were some that were already gone and married and in college, and range of 10 years of people that came and said something and said how good. And many of them said the same thing. The only reason we kept coming back because you were the only one that asked me what about my day was. Not even my dad knew that I loved, Messi, or I love, ex-ball player. But you asked me for it. Nobody actually even know that I was working in the supermarket, and you asked me, how's your job going? That was the reason that we used to come, because we wanted that familiar face that was making a difference in our lives. And she sat through there. She heard everything that they had to say about her. And finally, they just came and they asked her to sit in the front, and they pretty much just took her shoes off, and every single kid came and started putting some water, like washing of the feet, to her. And they all came, and that was her service where people just talked and tell her how much she meant for them. The idea is this. When we are here, we have something to do. When we are here on this earth, it doesn't matter how simple we think it is that standing in the front door and just say, good morning, how are you doing today? Because she knew, and she was never good at doing talks or anything like that, so she didn't know that was not her thing. Her thing was to make connections with these kids. And today, many of those kids are in churches because of her. Not because of the preaching, not because of the priest, not because of the pastor. It's because of the person that she met every single time that they come through that door. That's taking the evil eye out and embracing what we need to do every single day. And embracing people, and know that as still here, we have something important to convey. Finally, yesterday I went to see Lance. And I tell you that when I came out of that room, Mariceli was with me. So when we came out of that room, one of the things that we said was like, I'm called for this. He evangelized me in this process in his life. The strong person that is in that bed right now praying for all of you right now, bring me to a stage that sometimes you forget that that's your role. Because I was not there to come for him, he come for us. Through the entire process. How? Being vulnerable. Allowing God to be God. And receiving God with thankfulness of heart. So thank you. Mariceli and I left the room pumped up. And you say, how are you going to be pumped up by this situation that is humanly difficult? It's because we can see how God works through all of us. And how God continues to work when we're still here. And that's the message of the gospel. Let's take out everything that is not God's and embrace each other. And I will never forget the words of a very wise woman that looked at me and my wife and says, enjoy. Thank you.